was just surreal. I thought when you're used to working a certain way and then these events happen that you have no control over, just shifting the way you suddenly do your work and how you interact with friends and family, and everything was just so uncertain at the time.
Because surviving the pandemic can mean two different things, right? The traditional idea of surviving, not getting sick and making it through it, but also not killing each other when you have to live in the same space.
Take the challenge not as a problem, take it as an opportunity to be creative and inventive and maybe come up with new ways of making films.
It's been a curse and a blessing, I think, to a lot of us. The point is to try to find the blessings as much as you can and then deal with the curse.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to our first North American UFM Film Talk for the public. My name is Ragnar Keil. I'm going to be the host for today's show. Our main topic will be the corona pandemic and how it affected and still affects the lives and the work of our four panel guests today. Let me just jump right into the action and introduce to you. Let's start with a couple of ladies first, Uyen Lee and V.W. Scheich. These two, they are literally a director, producer, writer power couple. It's actually difficult to estimate what they are not doing. Their film company is called Rareform Pictures, Inc. Last year, they finished their latest feature-length film, Stars Fell on Alabama. But they also work individually for other companies, for other film companies and projects. VW as a VFX producer and supervisor, and Uyen as production legal and legal counsel. Then we have Stephen P. Sherwood. He's based in Atlanta as well. He's an award-winning writer, director, and editor with more than 60 credits on IMDb. He created and runs the Southern Screenwriters Guild and is the founder and festival director of the Southern Shorts Awards Film Festival. He's currently working on a sci-fi web series, which he's going to produce this coming March. And last but not least, we have Mark W. Travis from LA. He is regarded by Hollywood and international film professionals as the world's leading teacher and consultant of the art and craft of film directing. He is and was a teacher at many international film schools and institutes around the world, such as the Griffith Film School in Brisbane, Australia, the AFI, UCLA, the Directors Guild of the United States of America, Germany, the Netherlands, and I just name a few here because the list goes on and on and on. Just check his website. Mark also served as a directional creative consultant for filmmakers worldwide. He's known for his revolutionary Travis technique, which he developed over a span of 40 years. Now, we are through the intros, my dear friends, and I have a very simple question at the beginning, and let's start again with our couple, Uyen and VW. The pandemic hit last year in the United States. How did you process the news, and what did you think right away regarding your personal life, but for your work as well?
You can start.
All right. At the time, last year in 2020, we were living in Los Angeles, and I was working as a director of business and legal affairs at a studio. And we got the news, I remember in mid-March of last year, that our office would be shut down in accordance with all the regulations, and we would be working from home. And I thought to myself, we had just moved into a slightly bigger apartment. Instead of a 2-bedroom, we had a 3-bedroom. And we had moved in January. And I thought to myself, that's great because we have this extra bedroom that's my office and I can just work from there, right?
Finally, after all these years.
Finally, we get to use the space we have. But then I thought, probably, but it'll be for 2 weeks, a month max. I'm asking my coworkers and they're like, yeah, I'm sure it's not going to be that long. And we all were kind of just speculating. I say that looking back, when I ended up leaving that job in October of last year, I'd been working from home since March to October. So obviously we know how the pandemic played out, especially in Los Angeles, with all the restrictions that had been put in place pretty much from the beginning. So just from a work standpoint, I felt very fortunate and very lucky that I had a job that I could do from home. You look at one contract, you can look at it in the office, you can look at it at home, you can still call people, you can still that. But there was a disruption in the sense that you definitely want to be in the same space as your colleague so that you can discuss projects more easily. And not having that, we tried to do our weekly meeting via Zoom, and it was good in that we were able to see each other and still be connected on projects. But it definitely took its toll in that you just, when you're at home and the space. Fortunately, VW and I get along, so we were home all the time together. But it was just surreal. I thought, when you're used to working a certain way, and then these events happen that you have no control over, just shifting the way you suddenly do your work and how you interact with friends and family, and everything was just so uncertain at the time.
Because surviving the pandemic can mean two different things, right? The traditional idea of surviving, not getting sick and making it through it, but also not killing each other when you have to live in the same space and make sure that works out. Yeah, we had just finished physical photography of Starsville, Alabama at the end of November, and we were planning to go into post-production. And I was going to do the edit in my home little office on my own station at home anyway. So I was planning to crawl into a dark cave and be surrounded by nothing but wall-to-wall monitors and just plug away at the edit. That was the plan going into 2020 in January already. But I didn't count on the added bonus of having Uyen work from home, which, it makes it quite great because then you have someone to run things past. And so we really made the most of it. And for whatever reason, I had always have like small other clients from VFX, whether it's come scan a theater or an environment or come supervise visual effects on the set of a music video or commercial or feature film. And so we had several things already lined up for 2020. And then as the information grew and the communities became more understanding of the protocols, all that stuff shut down, right? It was absolutely shut down, and all the productions halted, put the brakes on. And mostly the most upsetting is seeing all your friends who really depend on day-to-day work, day-to-day on set, and don't have the luxury of being in post on a project for 3-4 months allocated funding. They need that on-set work. And so just making sure that they were okay, obviously physically, but also emotional support, and if necessary, financial support. The amount of people in the film community in Los Angeles putting out postings on different sites saying, look, if you need something, supplies, whether it be a small thing of food or, other things, please let us know. It's not any kind of negative stigma. We're here to support each other. So I think that in the time of need, I was really impressed by Los Angeles community filmmaker, and whether it be bigger studio films or smaller indie communities, Facebook, what have you, really being there to support their local artists, right? To say, we work together all the time. You have 3 kids at home. You don't have food. We will call, whatever cart and send over a small box of whatever. That was really, really touching. I thought that was really a positive thing that came out of the lockdown and pandemic.
That's touching. That's very touching, actually.
Humanity was lovely, yeah, because everybody is scrambling for toilet paper and this and that, but there were huge groups of people that were interested more in how are you doing? How is your neighbor okay? Do you need something? Because I have excess, I can give to you. It's not a problem.
Right. So many of our friends who had children and then suddenly with the schools closed had to now start, teaching from home and doing their job and keeping their life going. And so that was definitely, I would imagine, way more challenging in some ways. And obviously VW and I, we are fortunate. Like I said, we have jobs, we can work from home, and we were in a position to, so it did not disrupt our day-to-day life as much as I think a lot of other people's.
Yeah.
Mark, how was it for you? You remember the question, where were you? How did you process it? And what did that mean for you in a personal and work level?
I was right here in Los Angeles. And because of the way my work, how it affected me is rather huge in a way, because my wife, Elsha, and I used to spend about 4 or 5 months a year traveling overseas, teaching, consulting. And we had, at the time that the virus hit, we were supposed to go to Australia, New Zealand, Cyprus, and Sweden. Those were lined up during 2020. We haven't been to any of them, obviously, because suddenly everything shut down. So for me, what happened is my work, the work I do teaching and consulting and working with directors and producers and writers, had to shift dramatically. I had to figure it out how to do it. And ironically, something I had never really done before came up quickly. The film school in Sweden that wanted me to go there and teach said, well, could you teach what you were going to teach and do it online as a webinar? And to be really quite honest, I panicked. I panicked because what I'm teaching a lot is I'm teaching directors how to work with actors. And I do it in a room, in a space, or whatever. And I'm working with actors, and I can demonstrate this with actors. Suddenly, I'm looking at like what we are all doing right now, doing something like that online. Online, when I have nobody in the room except me. So the whole fabric of what I was wanting to teach changed because I can't even replicate the situation of working with actors to show them how these different techniques work. So I had to reinvent it. And so I was in a panic. I said yes to the webinar because I say yes to everything. And it was like 2 days before the webinar, I had a lecture all prepared, which actually was quite boring, but it covered everything I wanted to talk about, but it was boring. And my beautiful wife, who is also my business partner and my muse and my spiritual guide, said to me, Mark, don't you have a video clip somewhere of you actually directing actors that you could use and use that as a demonstration? Now, I have so many hard drives here filled with videos of me teaching. I'm going, okay, somewhere. And we went on a search through the video and found a clip of me doing exactly what I would have been doing if I had done it live with actors. And suddenly, the day before the webinar in Sweden, I told the people in Sweden, big change, everything's changing. They were all set up. And they wanted me to use PowerPoint, which I really don't like. They want, because it's so impersonal. And so I discovered the point of this is that COVID forced me to discover another way to teach. And the way to teach, now, if you can imagine this, if I was in a room, a lecture room hall now, and I explained to you a way of working with actors, and I could show you with actors. Once I've shown it to you, it's now just lingering in your memory. And I could talk about what I did, but that's only in your memory. I could say, this is what I did, and you go, okay. When it's a video clip, I can show it to you again and again and again and again. So I discovered a much more powerful way to work with directors, learning how to work with actors, and work with actors how to work with directors by showing clips and actually deconstructing something that you can see and repeat. So it changed my whole way of teaching. Some of my clients immediately when the virus hit got in touch with me and said, okay, my film has been shut down. Good time to study techniques before I go back. And I have one client right now. Her film will either start in May or September. This is a major feature film. The difference between May and September is huge. And so she's, trying just on that side of it. It's a big change. Another director who just finished production was telling me that his budget almost doubled because of just the production that he shot it exactly the way he was going to a year ago. So he just went into production recently, but his budget doubled. This is an independent film, which he is financing himself. And it doubled. Quick thing, if you go into production, there are certain things you have to do in terms of virus, in terms of safety of everybody, and have certain people on the set checking. If you just look at that budget, what that will cost you. That was his original budget for the entire film. It's a very inexpensive, low budget film. So it's easy to double if your budget is very, very small. Anyway.
Part of the irony here is that all the new jobs that the COVID protocols have required to be invented. You have people that there were no jobs of being a safety officer to do those specific kind of protocols before now. And, so hopefully, though, they'll be able to transition once we finally get to the point that that's in the past.
Stephen, hi. Also a child of Atlanta. Same question. You got hit by the virus in the United States. Where were you? How did you process it? Tell us about the challenges and what happened?
Our submissions have dropped down to a third of what they were before, which is the other reason we had to go virtual. Basically, we do a quarterly film festival. I came up with Southern Shorts Awards out of frustration of dealing with other festivals, which were inevitably disappointing. And you enter a festival, especially early on, and it's a year later before you find out if you get in, if they even tell you. And by then you've forgotten you even entered it. So I wanted to do a film festival for filmmakers by filmmakers. And ours is the only festival in the world that every film is scored by 3 judges. You get a score sheet and judges' comments at no extra cost. Nobody else does that. So we were scheduled to have our festival in February, and things started looking, pear-shaped. So I decided, we have to just keep going. And I got introduced to Zoom, and we just rescheduled. We did it on Zoom. We've done 4 since then. And of course, we've actually had more participation by international filmmakers because they can chime in and, be available for the festival. And the way I run it is that we show all the films one day on our website. So it's a one-day festival. I don't charge for it because I think it's foolish to try to do that. And you can watch all the films, and then at 8 o'clock that night, we do a live Zoom session, and we have our full awards presentation the way we've always done it, which is a mini Oscar style. We have a host, it's black tie. He opens envelopes, announces winners. We show clips from the films. They get their 2 minutes online. And then we edit that and post it the next week. So we had to scramble it and figure out a way to keep going. It was not a matter of choice for me. I wasn't just going to let the festival die off, just because we couldn't get in. And the theater shut down. My biggest worry at this point is, will the theater be there when we come out of this? Hopefully they will be. It's at the Aurora Cineplex here in Roswell, which is a full, regular theater. And that's, we've all been to festivals where it was not the best physical location for it, and bad audio and everything else. And I wanted to, to me it was disrespecting the filmmakers when you do that. So ours is in a real theater, and everything is trying to do it for the filmmakers' benefit. And my whole phrase is, basically, if you're going to, improvement requires assessment. If you're going to improve, you have to be assessed. And that's the whole reason we do the Screenwriters Guild, is to give writers a way to hear their screenplays before they go to production. And it's, sometimes you have people that don't accept feedback very well. And my point is, if you can't accept feedback, you shouldn't be in this industry. You've got to be able to adapt and to learn and keep going. And like right now, I have a script I wrote years ago that oddly is turning out to be almost prescient for our times. And it's about an alien ship that shows up in 2027. And this is found footage sent back to us to warn us. So it's everybody talking to their webcams about what's happening. And they can't go in big crowds because the aliens will land and grab them. So it's almost turning into an allegory about COVID. But the huge advantage now with Zoom is I can shoot the actors through Zoom at their homes and just tell them how to set it up and record it. So it's been a curse and a blessing, I think, to a lot of us. The point is to try to find the blessings as much as you can and then deal with the curse.
Speaking to your point about theaters and hoping that there's a good place to show your movie and how important it is for feedback. I have a filmmaker friend here in the States, and he submitted to a festival in Asia, and he got in. He was so excited. So he booked his ticket. He flew to Asia. He gets to the cafe to meet the festival director to talk about the screening. And the festival director says, "Oh, the screening is now. Here's my laptop." And he sat next to him in the cafe. Would you like a They watched his movie, The Laptop.
Oh, no.
And he says, "Congratulations, you're an award-winning filmmaker." And that was it. So he was like, "Yes, I got an award. And yes, I got a festival. But I kind of envisioned it a little different. But I was like, man, I'm so sorry that that's a true story. That breaks my heart. But yeah, you make a good point about the audience feedback is always the best thing as making an indie film you get from anything other than, more than awards, right? That's something you'll keep with you forever, is that laughter, applause, or critique from someone. One of your jury people would be amazing.
Well, that's one of the things we do at the end of the festival after the awards presentation is we stay live on Zoom, and there are a lot of connections made, and people, and I try to tell them, don't just, tell the friends to watch your film, watch other people's films, and then you can connect with them. And we've had a lot of people, especially in the Atlanta area, connect. The big advantage to a festival like ours is you will get feedback from people that aren't related to you, that aren't your best friends, who will be honest about it, because filmmakers don't grow from praise. You grow from criticism and learning what to do better.
My question to all of you is, what's going to be later, like distribution-wise, cinema-wise, but also, Mark, storytelling-wise? Because is this a chance right now, or is it more like, oh, let's just get the heck out of it as fast as possible? Because there are many people that I speak to about this, and the reactions are different. And I would like to know what you think about this. And then, of course, of the others as well. I'm a bit jumping from festivals now to that, but this is a very important topic for everybody, I think, also in the public, that they want to know, where are we? How important is the now?
We're obviously in the middle of a big change, a huge change. And on your email, Ragnar, you said something about how is it going to affect filmmaking and storytelling after the virus. I think we have to stop thinking about that, because nobody knows when after the virus will be, if it'll ever be. None of us are back to doing what we were doing. We are storytellers, we are filmmakers. My suggestion is all of us have to think about how can we permit or allow this to go on, what's going on now, to actually improve our work, not threaten it. Find new ways of storytelling, find new ways of running festivals, find new ways. In other words, can we get better at what we're doing in light of what's going on? I live in Los Angeles now, which we're still in a lockdown here. And I'm in the middle of the film industry, and some television is being done and all that. I mean, people are still producing, but it's like a small percentage. For those of us who are in the world of mostly independent filmmaking, is to look at it and say, how can we still tell our stories regardless of this shift and change? And in the past, there have been other challenges that we have all faced, whether they were global or just personal challenges, like shooting with a budget that's way too small. We adjust, we adapt. Our goal is tell the story, figure out how to tell the story. You're on location, it's raining, it's supposed to be a sunny day. You figure out how. We are good at that. That's what we learn how to do. And sometimes, quite honestly, because of the challenges, our films get better. We're going, well, thank God it was raining, because look at the great scene I got. I never even thought of doing it that way. So I think we have to look at the virus, COVID, and all of that as a welcomed challenge to see how clever, how good how creative we are, so that we can find new ways. And getting back to what you were talking about, Stephen, doing things on Zoom. I've seen some films that were done on Zoom, which some of them are amazing. They're really good. It's like right now, when you just think about it, all of us, we got 1, 2, 3, well, we got more than this, but think of this. We all have, in this moment, 4 cameras running. We have multiple or 5, and we have multiple microphones working. Everything is lit fairly well or good enough. I mean, we're actually in production right now in this talk with more equipment going on than you usually have when you're out shooting your film. Just think about it. And it's free. All those cameras are free. The microphones are free. You don't need a sound mixer right now. And if you have a little technology like I do, that you can run it through a online mixer and separate soundtracks, you can make a film this way. So in other words, now COVID has forced us to be communicating on Zoom. It's forced some people to make films on Zoom and do plays on Zoom, some of which I've seen. Some are good. Most of them are really bad, but that's okay. Because we're just moving into a new environment. I know personally, for me, and I talked about my teaching earlier, people have asked me when they see that I'm teaching differently, and they like it. They like the way it works. They say, Mark, what are you going to do when you can be back in the room with all those people? How are you going to do that? I go, I don't know, because I'm sort of hooked on the way I'm doing it now, and it works. The fact that I could be teaching, like I said yesterday, to 10 directors from 5 different countries all at the same time. Well, I can't do that in a room. So there are things that are opening up. So I don't know what'll happen. My focus is today, every day, how can I make what I do better? How can I tell my stories better? So if you're a filmmaker, take the challenge not as a problem, take it as an opportunity to be creative and inventive, and maybe come up with new ways of making films. Totally new ways of making films that people hadn't thought about just because of the challenges that you're facing.
And it's the spirit of the show must go on, right? You're not going to let this stop you. And then the idea of necessity being the mother of invention, right? It's old sayings. We both know them. They're like, oh, these are the obstacles. These are the things that are getting me away from my goal. How do I overcome them? How do I jump past all these hurdles? And how do I maybe bring in new things that were never around? Because let's be honest, I don't think many people knew what Zoom was in 2019 in October. They're like, Zoom, isn't that what's on the lens? Like, that's how are you going to use the lens? It wasn't a thing, right? But now everyone's a Zoom expert. I mean, Steven's got the backdrop that everybody dreams about, right? So clearly, the amount of time given and the mentality of being, like Mark was saying, super crafty, really understanding what the end result's going to be and how can I then move and shape and twist and adjust to overcome rain. We had fires when we were shooting Starsville, Alabama. We were going to shoot up in the hills, and suddenly the location was being evacuated. This was in October. It was on fire. The house we were going to shoot it was everyone had to leave.
It was in a mandatory evacuation zone, and we found out that morning, 3 hours before people were going to arrive for the shoot.
So, like Mark said, scramble. Yeah. But again, the show must go on. This isn't going to beat us, much like COVID not going to defeat us. You can make your movie. Absolutely. And I think to Ragnar's question about how will this inspire new storytelling, I think and I hope that these living conditions and these experiences are going to make people think about the human condition a little bit more. What is it to be isolated from their family and friends? Make choices to have a better future because you have to be more confined now. And then what kind of trauma does that set in? I mean, being alone and isolated and quarantined, there is this like agoraphobia kind of a feeling of, and now you're afraid to go outside. Almost people, I think, sometimes go too far. They get the delivery and they're looking with like radioactive wands, like counters, trying to decide, is this apple okay to eat? Like, well, that's not the characteristics of this particular virus. Maybe COVID 2030 or something, but this one you can manage. But and within just those characteristics, those obstacles, those villains, if you will, you can suddenly create all new stories that didn't exist. But what's interesting is that everybody on the globe has similar experiences, and that's where you can grab your audience, right? Everyone knows what it's like to have to not be able to see a loved one, or hopefully, unfortunately rather, have to experience losing somebody in this whole that was perfectly healthy, and then suddenly they got sick, they go into ER and they don't come out. That loss, and then living with that fear after the fact. You have a child, you have an elderly person at home you're living with, responsibility. So suddenly you have all these stories now, all these new traumatic experiences that you had before this ever happened. Nobody could relate, right? But now suddenly you have a screenplay you wrote years ago that parallels almost like an alien invasion of a different world, where we're invaded now by this virus. You can't see, the invisible enemy is all around us. How do you fight against it? I mean, you could tell stories, the four of us could tell stories for eons, right? With just these new kind of parameters. So I think if you take the mentality that Mark was talking about, this kind of, you can do it, you can make your movie, suddenly you have this whole new Rolodex of really fun things to play with, these new story dynamics.
But with that said, and I agree with Mark that, independent filmmakers are very resourceful and can pivot and use the conditions or certain COVID-19 pandemic we're in to create and still do it, but in new and novel and unique ways. And I totally agree. But once you make your movie, what about distribution? How has the distribution landscape just changed so dramatically due to COVID-19? And I think obviously, theaters were devastated by this pandemic and still are struggling from all the loss of revenue. Definitely this idea that we have this content, we're creating it, but ultimately how will it get to the audience? And I think, we've seen obviously the shift to online streaming in ways that have just been so propelled forward by COVID-19. And I can't wait for the theater to come. I miss that feeling. I remember
I do like
oh, let's go, let's get our popcorn. It's opening weekend. Let's go and let's see, 3 movies this weekend. And there's such this like loss because there's that sense of community and connection that you get with the audience when you go into the theater to watch the movie. And while I am loving all those streaming movies at home, there is just so much that is different. And I think that until, you're right, we can't stop for this pandemic to end. We need to keep creating. But at the same time, there is such a drastic change in how people will be able to consume the content, see these movies. And that is so uncertain. And also one other thing real quickly, when Mark had made the comment about budgets doubling, and you think, and on an indie level, it doesn't take much to get that amount over what you reasonably had budgeted for. But part of it too is insurance. Production insurance, and how that has, with a lot of insurers refusing to cover COVID-19 losses and a lot of banks not issuing completion bonds because you don't have your production insurance, it leaves it on the indie filmmaker and their financiers to say, do we take the risk, continue the production, and hope that no one gets sick because we can't absorb that loss, or do we just, schedule it and push it? And like you said, it could be May, it could be September, I'm not sure. And obviously this is sort of more directed towards on the independent filmmaker level, because studios face a whole other slew of problems and issues around insurance as well, and around working with the big guilds to protect everyone on the project, which we should do to keep everyone safe. But it is hard when you have barely enough to just get your production made, to have to think about absorbing more cost with that.
But then as an indie filmmaker, you make a product and there's audiences at home now for more hours of the day than they've ever been home before. And they're consuming content. So now my little film is up on a tile next to a huge budgeted studio film, and they're side by side. That's a positive and negative, because someone will say, your movie doesn't look like this. It looks like, I'm like, yeah, I didn't make it for that. That's why. So there's that. But also it's kind of nice to be at that table where you never were before. I think also COVID has allowed for the rebirth of drive-in theaters, which is super nice and romantic and awesome. But you're not watching the movie at that point anyway, so that's kind of a negative. So it is definitely a balance of back and forth. And I think that, it's definitely a challenge to see like where you can push and pull and move back and forth on project. It's tough. I don't know.
We're actually having someone here who's producing in March, right? Stephen, you're going to do your sci-fi web series. Is this a renaissance, like on Zoom making films? And of course, as filmmakers, we're also business people. The best would be to live by what we're doing. Do you want to monetize this later, or what are your plans? What's your idea?
Well, I think we all wish we had invested in Zoom, but as I always say, the only constant in the universe is change. And you have got to be ready for it, because it's going to happen whether you like it or not. This one, it's called the Human Coda Project. And the guy's starting this YouTube channel called that because he says the coda is the end of a piece of music, and I think this is probably the end of us. So the whole point is everybody is getting online and saying, just make your videos and tell me what you are going through personally in it, because it's all over the news and who cares about them. And we're going to put it on servers, and if the worst comes to worst, at least there's a record of we were here and this is who we were. So basically, it's like 20 actors in it. It's monologues for the most part. So I'm going to use Zoom. Before I thought I would just have to have them, do it, send it to me, and hope for the best. Now with Zoom, I can literally direct them in real time and record it and just take the best cuts. But most of it is actors at their house with just costume changes to show the continuance of time. I do have, I may have to bend VW's ear at some point because I do have a couple of shots. You got to show the aliens at some point or people feel cheated. So I'm going to have to show a ship coming overhead. I've got two 20-somethings who are having an end of the world party, which was partly inspired by these 20-somethings having the same kind of party for COVID, where it's like, oh, we don't care, we're going to die anyway. And of course, that's when the ship shows up and gets them. It's basically, no budget, low budget short. And that was the original purpose of it. But there's 7 webisodes. And in the end, it's going to be about 86, 87 minutes, which is enough to release it as a feature. So we're reading it. I always have it read, every script in my screenwriting group, because that's the whole point, is that you're too close to it. You need to get that feedback. And of course, since I run the group, they're most brutal with my scripts. But, that's the way you got to do it. So we're going to read it over the next 6 weeks, parts 1 and 2 next Tuesday, and then 3 and 4 and 5, 6, and 7. And I'm going to take that feedback and do what you're supposed to do, because all writing is rewriting. I have to go back and make the changes and try to make it feel more real. Then we're just going to shoot. And I mean, the big advantage is I can shoot most of the actors in half a day at their own home, just using Zoom. I do have a priest that, in a homage to the original War of the Worlds, who's going to try to go talk to the aliens, and what happened to the priest in that one. So basically, it's going to be fairly simple to do. It's just it's a lot of actors, a lot of lines, and I'm going to use, because I want it to be realistic. I want it to be like a real YouTube. Nobody edits in YouTubes. They just do slam edit. They just cut to the next thing. That helps me reduce the amount of dialogue or monologue the actor has to memorize. So basically, I'll shoot each actor. I'll edit those into the 7 things, and I'm going to try to put it out. And I know it's a long shot, but I'm trying to do it a little bit like Blair Witch Project, where I'm going to put it out anonymously, because it's going to start with a guy whose face and voice is covered, and he's going to say, I work for basically YouTube, and this came in. And I don't know if it's real or not, but I don't want to hold it up if it is. So decide for yourself.
If our video here gets too popular, it's not anymore anonymous.
Well, yeah. Well, the thing is, I'd actually considered, I may even do this, is join conspiracy groups and say, hey, have you seen? So it's just a way of trying to get it out there, because there's a lot of gullible people out there. And, if that doesn't work, in the end, I can put the whole thing together and try to market it as a feature. I'm hoping that part of the upshot of COVID will be, because of VW is saying the increased demand, is that shorts will finally get their due. We get shorts that have major stars in them. We've had a short that had Vincent D'Onofrio in it. We've had other recognizable Hollywood actors. And if you look at IMDb, it's surprising how many of them, even after they're well known, do shorts. And I think it's a medium that needs to be given its due and given some means of distribution and monetization. And maybe, is it, I'm sorry, Uyen? When? Maybe you can address that.
You're right, Stephen. It is really difficult to get distribution for shorts. We lucked out in that even though our short was never on the short list of the shorts for the academies, but it had enough interest from distributors that we were able to get distribution for our short film. Wow. Which was amazing. And then after that, we realized, like you said, there isn't much distribution for shorts. We should probably move to features now. But I think it's just in that, you're right. Maybe if demand increases, maybe that would incentivize distributors to look at shorts in a more, as more marketable.
But in the same way that Zoom is new, TikTok is not something we knew about in 2018, 2019. Yeah. And this is a 60-minute platform. So are you making short content within 60 seconds, rather 60 minutes, sorry, 6 seconds. Now you have new platforms opening up where the short is too long. The 20-minute short is too long. Now you need 60 seconds. Grab, captivate, turn, twist a story, and give it back to your audience and impact them. I mean,
so maybe we thought maybe you had a new platform that was invented that could draw people with, shorts under 10 minutes or 5 to 10, whatever that spot is going to be. Maybe that's
powered by advertising. We should write this down. This could be the next thing. Are you writing this down? Yeah. Because now you got all the banners from all the things that are paying for the platform, giving money back to the filmmaker and showing their shorts in a small content you can get while in an elevator, so to speak, right? Kind of exciting. So and people, like I said, are more and more content. I think also something that would help, I think, for not only myself and your film festival, but also Mark's classes, is this idea and exploration into the world of virtual reality. I've been doing a lot of research and development into VR for production purposes, because nowadays with all of the breakthroughs of Mandalorian and the stages and everything else, with what we all know about, but also there's a whole world of VR that is really interesting. So on the film festival level, there's a couple different apps that you can use. And I could take my film right now, invite you all to you want to go to a drive-in? You can sit in a virtual drive-in with goggles on. I'm serious. And look around the room and have friends in different seats. And you have a little name above it, whatever, and play my movie on a big screen. I was like, this is so cool. And I think that as indie films start to roll out in screens, it can be a vaulted ceiling, a vaulted a stadium seating-like situation. It'd be a flat theater. I think depending on who you are, those movies play differently for comedies or horror films because it changes the way the crowd feels. It can be an old movie palace, like somewhere in London. You can change the environment whatever you want. Maybe even design it around your movie. That would be kind of neat. Kind of maybe as a space station type of a dome type of feel. But all watching it in VR from the safety of your home, and then also be able to see it with your friends because you see them all sitting around you. So you still have that sense of community. And I bring up, Mark's classes because I think that some of these lectures happening in VR where now you can actually have the actor there with the instructor and then be able to take notes and draw in the air. Like I would definitely sign up for a class in VR to have him teach us how to physically do the spatial, understanding, working with actors. Like, sold, sign me up tomorrow. Let's do it.
VW and I have to talk. No, I would love to talk with you, VW, because this is something I was thinking about long before COVID. How can I bring the work I do and the work I do with actors to people online or electronically through virtual reality? And I've talked with a lot of people about it, haven't solved the problem yet, the challenges of doing that, because I don't know enough about virtual reality technology and how it works. So
I got you, Mark. Yeah. I got you.
VR, you're going to have to teach me. I'll be the student, because again, that's what I'm talking about. If we can make that adjustment and make it work, so that I could be somehow online working, literally working with actors live, and you could be somewhere else in the world or somehow watching and being like you're in the room, then the likelihood of me going back to those moments when we're all in some little room someplace, I go, why? I've got a better system. So my passion in this business is not just storytelling, directing, and all of that. And the world of distribution and all that, I don't know much about. I know the impact it's had, but my passion is really in the world of storytelling. I like the process of making a film more than the final product. The final product may be good. I say, okay, that's good. But the process from the beginning of script all the way through until the film is done, that's what excites me. It really excites me because of what we can do, what we can build, the challenges we face, and how we overcome those challenges. So the idea of unified filmmakers excites me, because that means, in my mind, filmmakers talking to each other, which we don't do enough. I work mostly with directors. I am a director and a writer and actor too, but mostly directors. Directors don't talk to each other enough. The fact that I'm doing this webinar, this course that I told you, which is 16 weeks long, this with 10 directors for 16 weeks, 10 directors are getting together every week to share ideas and experience. Now, this is a community of 10 directors from around the world talking to each other, sharing ideas, learning from each other. That, to me, is what Unified Filmmakers is about. If we can all, like we're doing right now, if we can get together and talk, how can you solve this problem? How can I, or even what VW and Uyen were saying at the beginning of your COVID talk, how can we help you? You need, in other words, how can we all work together? Not individually, how just can I make my film, but how can I work? How can we become more of a collective of artists solving problems, helping each other, supporting each other, and finding new and better ways to tell our stories. The collaboration, to me, is what the whole process is about.
You're talking actually it becoming a lifestyle, nearly, like with.
Absolutely. I love the term unified filmmakers.
I just want to see great content. I'm tired of seeing terrible films and people who didn't have the support they needed. So if we supported each other and all unified under this kind of ideology that, yeah, you need this, I can help that, or I know someone who's available, I can do a visual effect for you, or whatnot. Maybe Mark can jump in and help a director bridge that gap between reaching his actor the right way and evoke that emotion that he couldn't get the performance. And then all the movies are better. Yes, that's all I want. Better movies.
The thing is, if you get a group like I have, this group of 10 directors from around the world together, and I know them all, not all, some of them are new to me, but I know a lot of them very well. The amount of information and experience and skills within this group is extraordinary. I'm learning from them. I'm learning things that I didn't, but I'm even learning from you. And as I'm listening to all of you, that environment where we don't have to go back to school, but we do. We are all film students all the time. This is something my friend John Badham always says. We're all film students. But we can learn from each other. We don't have to go back to a formal school, but we can learn from each other. It's a lot of what you're doing, Stephen, as I listen to you with your Southern Shorts and all that, and letting people learn from each other. The feedback is so valuable. And too often I run into people who are so intent upon the film they want to make, but they don't want to let in other people's ideas and the influence. And I say, this is a mistake. You have, not that your film is going to be better because of it. You're going to be better because of it. Your film may still be good or bad, it doesn't matter, but you'll be better if you can be open and listen and learn. And again, unified filmmakers, the idea of filmmakers coming together to support each other and support each other in light of the COVID that's going on, the challenges that are going on. I mean, even just me listening to VW talking about virtual reality, what clicks to me, I go, I want to work with him. I want to talk to him. That's what I'm talking about. Those little moments like that. To me, this was a little piece of gold today. When you said, Mark, maybe you could do your thing with virtual reality. I said, great idea. I've thought about it, but you know how to do it. Let's talk. That's it. That's the Unified Filmmakers sort of model and goal. And who knows? And we only have a small group here. Imagine if there were 20 or 30 directors talking here, the amount of stuff you might hear, aside from seeing their films. But even hear stories about filmmaking that are going to be highly educational, influential, and make you a better storyteller.
To go to Mark's point about enjoying the process, I think all filmmakers are masochists to some degree, but you love the process, but it is collaborative, and you have to embrace that fully. And the whole thing of unifying is collaboration.